The ballroom went quiet for only 3 seconds, but to Adrian Villanueva, those 3 seconds seemed long enough to contain 8 entire years. He stood beneath a row of warm crystal chandeliers in a hotel overlooking downtown San Francisco, one hand resting casually inside the pocket of his charcoal suit. Around him were faces he had not seen since graduation parties, college send-offs, wedding photographs, and the slow scattering of adulthood. Some had changed almost beyond recognition. Others still carried the same expressions they had worn at 17, and directly in front of him stood Vanessa Cole. His former wife smiled as though the last 8 years had been waiting for this exact moment. "So, you really came," she said. Her voice carried farther than it needed to. Several people nearby turned toward them. Adrian gave a small nod. "I said I would." Vanessa looked him over. Not rudely at first, almost curiously. Then her eyes settled on his dark jacket. Plain white shirt, simple steel watch and shoes without a recognizable designer logo. Something familiar returned to her expression. It was the look Adrian remembered from the final years of their marriage. The look of someone evaluating whether he had finally become impressive enough. Apparently, he had failed the inspection. "I have to admit," Vanessa said, smiling toward 2 former classmates standing beside her, "I wondered what you were doing these days." Adrian glanced around the ballroom. A jazz quartet played softly near the windows. Beyond the glass, the lights of San Francisco stretched toward the bay beneath a thin layer of evening fog. "I'm still working," he said. Vanessa laughed. "Of course you are." The others smiled politely. Adrian could already see what was happening. 8 years had disappeared for everyone except Vanessa. In her mind, he was still 35, still coming home in work boots, still carrying rolled drawings under one arm, still talking about buildings, electrical systems, energy efficiency, and companies that did not yet exist. "What kind of work?" she asked. "Infrastructure." Her eyebrows rose. "You mean construction?" "Some construction. So you're still doing the same thing?" Adrian almost smiled. "Not exactly." Vanessa turned to the others. "He used to say that all the time." Adrian watched. Her. There was no anger in him. That surprised him more than anything. Years earlier, he had imagined this reunion countless times without admitting it to himself. Sometimes, in those imaginary encounters, he arrived in an expensive car. Sometimes Vanessa saw his name on a magazine. Sometimes someone announced his accomplishments before he even entered the room. In every version, she regretted doubting him. But standing there now, Adrian felt none of the satisfaction he had once expected. He felt strangely calm. Vanessa folded her arms. "You know, I really am glad you're doing okay." "I'm doing well." "Good." She said the word too quickly. Then she looked behind him. "Did you come alone?" "No." Vanessa waited. Adrian added nothing. "Someone is meeting you?" "My wife." Vanessa stared at him. Then she laughed. Not viciously. Not yet. But loudly enough that the nearby conversations began to fade. "Your wife?" "Yes." "I didn't know you remarried." "We've been married 3 years." Vanessa looked toward the entrance. No one was there. She tilted her head. "And where is she?" "She had a meeting. She'll be here." One of the former classmates shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa smiled. "Adrian." "What?" "You don't have to invent things." He studied her expression. She genuinely believed it. That was the remarkable part. She was not trying to expose him. She thought she was rescuing him from embarrassment. "I'm not inventing anything." Vanessa lowered her voice, though not enough. "Then I'm happy for you." "Thank you." "But if she doesn't exist, you can just say you came alone." Someone near them gave an awkward laugh. Vanessa looked pleased. Adrian glanced at his watch. 7:42. Claire had texted 15 minutes earlier. Meeting finished. Leaving now. Adrian returned his hand to his pocket. "She exists." "Okay." Vanessa smiled again. "Then we'll meet her." Adrian nodded. "You will?" She stepped closer. And what exactly do you do in infrastructure now? Adrian looked at the woman who had once told him that spending his life thinking about power grids and concrete foundations would never lead anywhere. He thought of the phone call he had received that afternoon. He thought of the documents still waiting inside the leather case in the trunk of his car. He thought of the number his financial advisor had repeated twice because Adrian had initially assumed he had misunderstood. Then he looked back at Vanessa. "I build things." She laughed. 8 years earlier, those 3 words would have sounded like an apology. Tonight they sounded like the truth. What Vanessa did not know was that at 3:18 that afternoon, Adrian Villanueva had officially become one of the wealthiest self-made businessmen in California. His holdings had crossed a valuation his advisors had been watching for months. The man standing quietly in front of her was, on paper, a billionaire. But Adrian had not come to the reunion to tell anyone. He had almost not come at all. 2 weeks earlier, the invitation had been sitting unopened on the kitchen counter of his home in Hillsborough. Claire found it beneath a stack of mail on a Tuesday morning. She was wearing slippers, an oversized grey sweater, and the reading glasses she insisted she did not need. She held up the envelope. "Class reunion?" Adrian looked over from the espresso machine. "Throw it away." Claire studied him. "You didn't even open it." "I know what it says." "How?" "Because reunions tend to say the same thing." Claire opened it. Adrian sighed. "You're committing federal crimes before breakfast." It was addressed to both of us. It was addressed to Adrian Villanueva and guest. I'm the guest. You have interpreted that aggressively. Claire smiled. She read the invitation. 25-year reunion. Seaview High School, Grand Ballroom, Saturday evening. Adrian poured coffee into 2 mugs. Claire looked at the card again. "Vanessa went there." "Yes." "The Vanessa." "There is only one Vanessa in my biography." Claire placed the invitation on the counter. "You should go." "No." "Why?" "Because I haven't spoken to most of those people in 20 years. "Exactly. That is not an argument for attending." "It could be." Adrian handed her a mug. "I have 3 meetings that week." "Saturday night?" "I could create one." Claire laughed. Adrian tried not to. Their home was quiet that morning. Sunlight moved through the wide kitchen windows and fell across the oak floor. Outside, a gardener's truck rolled slowly along the street. The house was beautiful, but it had never felt like a monument to money. Adrian had designed much of it himself. Warm wood, simple stone, large windows, no rooms built merely to impress visitors. He had learned that lesson long before he could afford to forget it. Claire sipped her coffee. "You still don't like saying her name." "I just said it." "You say it like you're reading a street sign." Adrian looked out the window. "That chapter is finished." Claire nodded. "Then attending shouldn't be difficult." "That is manipulative." "It's architecture." "What?" "I'm showing you where the structure is weak." He looked at her. She smiled. Adrian shook his head. This was one of the reasons he loved Claire. She never pushed him by raising her voice. She simply placed the truth on the table and waited for him to decide what to do with it. "You want to go?" he asked. "I want you to know you can." Adrian leaned against the counter. He remembered another kitchen, smaller, 8 years earlier, a different life. A version of himself who believed everything could be repaired if he simply worked harder. Back then, Adrian still thought persistence could solve problems that had nothing to do with effort. He had been wrong. The end of his marriage had taught him that some doors did not close because one person failed. Sometimes 2 people simply stopped walking toward the same future. Vanessa wanted a life Adrian could not yet provide. Adrian wanted time to build one. Neither knew how to translate those differences without turning disappointment into judgment. Eventually, Vanessa had stopped seeing possibility when she looked at him, and Adrian had stopped recognizing himself whenever he tried to become the person she expected. The divorce had not been dramatic. That almost made it harder. No screaming, no spectacular betrayal, no single unforgivable moment. just two people sitting across from each other at a small kitchen table and admitting that hope had become exhaustion. Vanessa packed 2 suitcases. Adrian helped carry one to her car. She stood beside the open trunk and looked at him. "I really thought you'd be further by now." Adrian remembered that sentence better than anything else, not because it was cruel, because part of him agreed. 8 years later, standing inside his quiet kitchen with Claire, he realized he might finally be ready to hear those words without allowing them to become his own. Claire tapped the invitation. "So?" Adrian looked at it, then at her. 1 hour, 2, 90 minutes. Deal. He reached for the invitation. Claire smiled, and somewhere inside Adrian, a door he had avoided for 8 years moved slightly open. Adrian Villanueva learned to build things long before anyone paid him for it. His father, Ernesto, believed that every child should know how to repair 3 things before graduating high school: a leaking faucet, a damaged electrical outlet, and a misunderstanding. The first 2 are easier, Ernesto used to say. Adrian grew up in Daly City, in a narrow 2-story house where the fog arrived almost every morning, and the kitchen always smelled faintly of garlic, rice, coffee, or something being prepared for relatives who might appear without warning. His parents had come to California from the Philippines before Adrian was born. They never romanticized struggle. Ernesto worked as an electrician. Adrian's mother, Liza, managed a small family restaurant with her sister. Money was carefully counted, but the house never felt poor. There was always enough food, enough noise, enough relatives, enough advice to last several lifetimes. As a boy, Adrian followed Ernesto into garages, attics, basements, and half-finished rooms. He watched his father repair wiring other people had ignored for years. Ernesto treated every job with equal seriousness. A small apartment deserved the same careful work as a luxury home. "People live behind these walls," he told Adrian once. "You don't see them, but your work affects them." Adrian remembered that. At 17, he could identify electrical problems by smell. At 18, he could read basic building plans. At 19, he spent more time looking at construction cranes than expensive cars. Vanessa Cole met him during senior year at Seaview High. She was organizing a student fundraiser. Adrian was fixing a row of malfunctioning lights in the auditorium. "You know there's a maintenance department," she said. "They said they'll come Thursday. The event is Wednesday." "Exactly." Vanessa stared at him. "You volunteered to fix them?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because people need the lights." She laughed. "You're strange." "Probably." She stayed and watched him work. That was how it began. Vanessa was different from Adrian. She liked presentation, he liked structure. She noticed entrances, clothing, expressions, social hierarchies. Adrian noticed whether the air conditioner was making an unusual sound. She dreamed about traveling, entertaining clients, attending important events. He dreamed about owning a company whose name people associated with work that lasted. At 18, those differences felt exciting. At 28, they felt complicated. Their early marriage was modest. They rented a 2-bedroom apartment in San Mateo. Adrian worked for a commercial maintenance contractor. Vanessa joined a public relations agency. In the beginning, they laughed about money. They ate takeout on the floor because they had not yet bought a dining table. They assembled furniture badly. They took weekend drives along the coast because vacations were expensive. For a while, ambition belonged to both of them. Then their careers began moving at different speeds. Vanessa received promotions quickly. She was intelligent, socially confident, and excellent with clients. Within several years, she was attending receptions with executives whose lives seemed polished and effortless. Adrian's progress looked slower. He was promoted, then promoted again. But every achievement appeared to create more work rather than more visible success. He would come home talking about efficiency systems and municipal contracts. Vanessa would ask when any of it would change their life. "I'm learning," Adrian told her. "You've been learning for 10 years. That's how you get good. That's how you get old." He knew she was joking, at least at first. The strain arrived gradually. Vanessa wanted a larger apartment. Adrian wanted to save money. She wanted to travel. He wanted to invest. She wanted evidence that the future was arriving. Adrian believed the future was something constructed so slowly that most people could not see it until the walls were standing. One night, Vanessa came home from a company dinner and found Adrian at the dining table. He had papers spread everywhere. "What is all this?" "A plan." "For what?" "A company." She stopped. "Your company?" "Yes." Vanessa sat across from him. Adrian explained his idea. Older commercial buildings were wasting enormous amounts of energy. Most property owners did not understand how much money outdated electrical and mechanical systems were costing them. Adrian wanted to create a company that redesigned those systems. Smarter buildings, lower energy use, better long-term performance. Vanessa listened. "How much would it cost?" "To start." "Yes?" "Almost everything we've saved." Her expression changed. "Absolutely not. I haven't done anything." "Good. It could work. It could destroy our savings. It could also change everything." Vanessa looked at him. "I don't want to. Spend another 10 years waiting for everything to change." The room became quiet. Adrian gathered the papers. "We'll talk later." But they never really did. Instead, the idea went into a drawer. For 6 months, Adrian tried to forget it. He took more responsibility at work. He accepted overtime. He saved. He told himself that stability was maturity, but every time he entered an old office building and saw inefficient systems wasting money behind walls, the same thought returned. There was a better way to do this. Eventually, Adrian began taking small consulting jobs on weekends. Nothing secretive, nothing dramatic. Vanessa knew. She simply did not believe it would become important. That hurt more than criticism. By the final year of the marriage, they had become two polite people sharing an address. Vanessa wanted motion. Adrian wanted foundations. Neither understood how to give the other what they needed. One Sunday afternoon, they sat across from each other. The apartment was unusually quiet. Vanessa folded her hands. "I think we should stop pretending." Adrian knew immediately what she meant. He looked down at the table they had once assembled together. One leg was still slightly shorter than the others. "You're unhappy," he said. "So are you." "I'm tired." "That's not the same thing." "No." Vanessa looked toward the window. "I don't think you're a bad person. I don't think you are either. But I don't believe in the life you're trying to build anymore." Adrian absorbed the sentence. He did not defend himself. Maybe he should have. Maybe the younger Adrian believed love required constant explanation. Instead, he asked the only question that mattered. "Do you want to stay?" Vanessa closed her eyes briefly. "No." Adrian nodded. It hurt. But something inside him also became strangely clear. For years he had been asking whether he could become enough for Vanessa. He had never asked whether the life he wanted was enough for himself. 3 months after the divorce, Adrian opened the drawer containing his old business plan. He placed it on the kitchen table. Then he called his father. "I think I'm starting the company." Ernesto was silent. Adrian waited. Finally, his father said, "Then start." "That's all?" "What did you want? A parade? I thought you'd tell me it was risky." "It is. I could fail." "You could." Adrian smiled despite himself. "That's terrible encouragement." "No. Encouragement is telling you that failure won't end your life." Adrian looked at the papers. "What if nobody believes it can work?" Ernesto answered immediately. "You only need customers to believe the work is good. Everyone else can catch up later." Adrian never forgot that. He started Villanueva Building Systems with 2 employees, one rented office, a used truck, and almost no margin for error. For the first year, the company survived. The second year, it grew. By the third, Adrian stopped wondering whether he had made a mistake. By the fourth, companies began calling him. And by the fifth, the future Vanessa had once been unable to see had become too large for Adrian himself to fully understand. Success did not arrive in Adrian Villanueva's life like a door suddenly opening. It arrived like construction, slowly, noisily, in stages. For the first 2 years, Villanueva Building Systems occupied 3 rooms above an accounting office in South San Francisco. The carpet was gray. The air conditioner worked only when it felt cooperative. The conference room had 1 table, 6 mismatched chairs, and a whiteboard permanently stained by a previous tenant's sales projections. Adrian loved it. He arrived before sunrise. He left after dark, not because he wanted people to admire his sacrifice. Usually, nobody was there to see it. He simply believed that a company could not ask employees to care about details its owner ignored. His first employee was Marco Santos, a mechanical engineer Adrian had known through commercial projects. His second was Hannah Reed, an operations specialist who could organize chaos faster than Adrian could create it. The 3 of them built everything together: proposals, systems, client lists, schedules, reputations. Their first major contract came from a regional medical office group: 12 buildings, outdated electrical systems, poor efficiency, strict deadlines. Adrian spent weeks reviewing the project. When they submitted the proposal, their price was not the lowest. The client questioned it. Adrian sat across from 4 executives in a glass conference room. One man tapped the document. "Why should we pay 15% more?" Adrian pointed to a line halfway down the page. "Because this prevents you from paying 40% more 5 years from now." The executive leaned back. "You sound confident." "I've seen what happens when companies save money on the wrong side of a wall." They received the contract. 6 months. Later, energy costs across the buildings dropped significantly. That became the project other clients heard about. Then came a university, then a hospital network, then a warehouse operator. Adrian kept reinvesting. When competitors bought luxury offices, he hired engineers. When consultants suggested increasing his public profile, he built a research division. When a business magazine requested an interview, he sent Marco. "You founded the company," Marco said. "You speak better." "I absolutely do not." "You absolutely do." Marco stared at him. "You're avoiding attention." "Yes." "Why?" Adrian looked at the construction plans on his desk. "Attention doesn't improve concrete." Marco shook his head. "You are going to become very rich and remain unbelievably boring." "That's the plan." Money changed Adrian's life gradually enough that he barely noticed. The first thing he bought was a better mattress. Years of construction work had taught him to respect sleep. The second was a new refrigerator for his parents. The third was a second truck for the company. Everything else went back into growth. He still drove himself. He still carried the same steel watch Ernesto had given him years earlier. He still preferred quiet restaurants. By the time Villanueva Building Systems had become Villanueva Infrastructure Group, Adrian had learned that wealth was most useful when it removed unnecessary fear. He could help his parents without checking his account first. He could give employees health benefits before a consultant told him it was financially convenient. He could walk away from clients who treated people poorly. He could fund projects whose value was not measured only in quarterly earnings. The most important of those projects began at Seaview High School. Adrian returned one afternoon after receiving a letter from an old engineering teacher. The technology lab had not been renovated in 15 years. Several programs had waiting lists. Students shared outdated equipment. Adrian walked through the room. He touched one of the old work tables. He remembered sitting there at 17, remembered sketching a bridge design during lunch, remembered Vanessa leaning over his shoulder. "You really like this stuff?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because everything starts as something somebody else can't see." Yet, 25 years later, Adrian stood in the same room. The teacher beside him asked whether his company might sponsor several new computers. Adrian looked around. "How much would it cost to renovate the entire lab?" The teacher laughed, then realized he was serious. That conversation eventually became the Villanueva Education Initiative. Adrian insisted his name remain off the building. When administrators wanted to put it on a plaque, he refused. "Call it the Future Works Lab." "But you're funding it. The students are the point." The initiative expanded. scholarships, technical programs, internships, engineering mentorships. The work gave Adrian something business never could, a sense that the future he had spent years constructing did not have to belong only to him. It was at one of those events that he met Claire Bennett. She was standing beside a scale model of an elementary school renovation, arguing politely with a contractor about natural light. Adrian overheard the conversation. "You can't reduce the windows by 30%, Claire said. "We can if we want to stay on budget." "Then reduce something else." "Windows are expensive. So are classrooms children hate sitting in." The contractor noticed Adrian. "Mr. Villanueva, maybe you can explain." Claire turned. She did not appear impressed. Adrian liked that immediately. He looked at the model. "Why reduce the windows?" "Structural changes." Claire pointed to another section, "which could be solved by shifting the corridor." Adrian studied it. "She's right." The contractor sighed. Claire looked at Adrian. "You're the donor?" "Partly." "You should tell your contractor to stop trying to make children study in boxes." "He's not my contractor." "He looked at you like you pay him." Adrian smiled. "I probably do." Claire finally smiled back. That was the beginning. Claire was an architect who specialized in public and community spaces. She cared deeply about design, but disliked glamour. She wore practical shoes. She carried pencils even when everyone else used tablets. She could spend 20 minutes discussing door placement because, according to her, badly placed doors ruined lives in small daily ways. Their relationship developed slowly. Coffee after meetings, lunches, walks through neighborhoods where Claire pointed at buildings and explained what she would change. Adrian discovered that being with her felt different from any relationship he had known. Claire was interested in his work, but never impressed by numbers. When Adrian's company crossed its first $1 billion in annual project value, he told her over dinner. Claire took a bite of pasta. "That sounds stressful." "That's your reaction?" "How many people work for you now?" "Almost 900. "That sounds even more stressful." Adrian laughed. Claire smiled. "Are you happy?" The question stopped him. Nobody had asked him that after a major business milestone. They asked if he was proud, excited, ready for the next stage. Claire asked if he was happy. "I think so." "That doesn't sound convincing." "I'm learning." "Good." 3 years later, they married in a small ceremony overlooking the Pacific. No business press, no elaborate spectacle. Family, close friends, good food, a windy afternoon. Adrian's mother cried because Claire had learned enough Tagalog to thank the family for welcoming her. Ernesto spent half the reception telling guests that Adrian had finally married someone who understood floor plans. Life with Claire was quiet, not empty. Quiet. Adrian slowly learned that calm did not mean waiting for something bad to happen. It could simply mean calm. Meanwhile, Villanueva infrastructure continued expanding. The company entered large-scale renewable energy systems, data center infrastructure, municipal modernization, transportation support, international partnerships. Adrian remained careful. Expansion fascinated him less than durability. "Anyone can grow during a good year," he told his leadership team. "I want to know if we'll still deserve trust during a difficult one." That philosophy made the company unusually stable. Investors noticed, banks noticed, competitors noticed. Financial publications occasionally mentioned Adrian, but his face remained unfamiliar to most people, especially Vanessa. Their lives had separated completely after the divorce. They exchanged a few polite emails regarding old documents. Then, nothing. Adrian heard occasional updates through former classmates. Vanessa's career had progressed well. She worked in corporate communications. She lived in the Bay Area. She attended alumni events. Adrian wished her well from a distance, and that was enough, until the invitation arrived. 3 days before the reunion, Adrian sat in a conference room on the 42nd floor of his company's headquarters. Hannah placed a valuation report in front of him. "You should look at page 6. Adrian continued reading another document. What happened on page 6? You became a billionaire. Adrian looked up. Marco, sitting across the table, grinned. Technically, he probably was last month. Hannah nodded. The new infrastructure division valuation made it official. Adrian opened the report. He found the number, then closed it. Marco stared. That's it? What should I do? I don't know. React. I am reacting. You blinked. Adrian looked toward the window. San Francisco spread below them. Traffic, buildings, tiny moving people. 30 years earlier, his father had brought him into the city to help repair wiring in an office tower. Adrian remembered standing on the sidewalk, staring upward. He had wondered what kind of people worked inside buildings that tall. Now his company occupied 5 floors of one. I should call my parents, Adrian said. Hannah smiled. That is the most Adrian answer possible. That evening, he called Ernesto. Dad, yes? The company valuation changed. Good change? Yes. How good? Adrian told him. Silence. Then Ernesto said, That sounds like too much money. Adrian laughed. It might be. You still coming Sunday? For lunch? Yes. Of course. Good. Your mother is making pancit. That was the end of the conversation, and somehow that was exactly what Adrian needed. On the afternoon of the reunion, Claire stood in Adrian's dressing room holding 2 jackets. Blue or charcoal? Charcoal. You answered too quickly. You asked me a question. I wanted consideration. Charcoal. Claire held both jackets against him. Blue looks expensive. Then charcoal. She smiled. That is why I married you. Adrian adjusted his cuff. Because I dislike blue? Because you became wealthy without developing the emotional need to dress like a yacht. He laughed. Claire hung the blue jacket away. The house was quiet around them. Outside, late afternoon sunlight moved across the hills. Adrian had spent most of the day working from home. Though very little work had actually been necessary, he knew why. The reunion bothered him more than he wanted to admit. Not Vanessa specifically, the version of himself associated with those years. He had spent so much time moving forward that returning, even for an evening, felt unnatural, Claire noticed. You can still decide not to go. Adrian looked at her. I thought you wanted me to. I wanted you to choose freely. I'm going. Good. You're still coming. I have the foundation meeting until 7. I remember. I'll come straight from there. Adrian nodded. Claire stepped closer. You don't have to explain your life to anyone tonight. I know. Do you? He looked at her. She straightened his collar. You have a tendency to become 17, around people who knew you at 17. That is psychologically suspicious. It's architecturally sound. That phrase continues to mean nothing. It means I'm right. Adrian smiled. Claire kissed his cheek. Go see your old friends. What if they're terrible? Then come home. What if I'm terrible? You're usually not. Usually? I believe in statistical honesty. 20 minutes later, Adrian drove toward San Francisco. He could easily have used a driver. He preferred not to. Driving gave him time to think. The road carried him past familiar neighborhoods and stretches of the peninsula that had changed dramatically since his youth. Glass offices stood where warehouses once had. Old shopping centers had become apartment towers. Restaurants had changed names. Cities, Adrian thought, were constantly rewriting themselves while pretending nothing had happened. People did something similar. The reunion was being held at the Meridian Grand Hotel near Union Square. Adrian handed his keys to the valet. The young attendant looked at the car, then at Adrian. It was a comfortable luxury sedan, elegant but not exotic. Nothing about him announced billionaire. That suited Adrian. Inside, the lobby glowed beneath warm lighting. Guests moved toward the elevators in formal clothes. Adrian checked his phone. Claire had sent a message. Meeting running 15 minutes late. Save me dessert, Adrian replied. No promises. She sent back a single annoyed face. He smiled. Then the elevator doors opened. The ballroom occupied the top floor. Adrian stepped out into a reception area, filled with framed photographs from Seaview High, sports teams, drama productions, graduation, classes, school trips. He found his senior photograph. 17-year-old Adrian stared back at him, thinner, more serious, hair slightly too long, tie badly positioned. Beside his photo was Vanessa's. Adrian looked at both for a moment. They had no idea what was coming, not the marriage, not the divorce, not the years after. That was the strange mercy of youth. The future remained invisible. Adrian, he turned. A woman approached with a surprised smile. Rachel Kim. It took him 2 seconds. Then recognition arrived. Rachel. Oh my God. They hugged. Rachel stepped back. You look exactly the same. That is objectively impossible. The same expression. That I believe. She laughed. Within minutes, Adrian was talking with people he had not thought about in years. A former basketball player had become a pediatric dentist. A quiet student from chemistry class ran a bakery with her husband. One former class president taught history. Another worked in software. The conversations were surprisingly ordinary. Children, parents, careers, traffic, mortgages, knees that hurt for no acceptable reason. Adrian relaxed. Maybe Claire had been right. Maybe he had turned the reunion into something larger in his imagination than it deserved to be. Then he heard Vanessa laugh. The sound reached him before he saw her. Adrian turned. She stood near the bar with 3 classmates. She looked polished, confident, older, of course, but unmistakably Vanessa. Her hair was shorter, her posture unchanged. For a few seconds, neither moved. Then Vanessa smiled. Adrian crossed the room. Hello, Adrian Villanueva. Vanessa. She hugged him briefly. He returned it politely. She stepped back. Well, you actually came. So did you. I always come. I remember. Vanessa laughed. That sounded judgmental. It wasn't. She introduced him to the people around her. 2 he remembered, 1 he did not. Beside Vanessa stood Richard Lawson, a tall man in a carefully tailored suit. This is Richard. Richard extended his hand. Good to meet you. You too. Vanessa explained that Richard worked in strategic consulting. Richard asked what Adrian did. Before Adrian could answer, Vanessa smiled. Adrian has always been in construction. Infrastructure, Adrian said. Vanessa waved lightly. Same general world. Richard nodded. That's solid work. It is. What company? Adrian took a glass of sparkling water from a passing server. Villanueva Infrastructure Group. Richard paused. Something changed in his eyes. Only for a second. Vanessa did not notice. That's your company? Richard asked. Adrian nodded. Vanessa laughed. Don't sound so shocked, Richard. Adrian always wanted his own company. Richard studied Adrian more carefully. How large? Adrian took a sip of water. Large enough? Vanessa rolled her eyes. He always did that too. What? Gave mysterious answers when the real answer was boring. Adrian looked at her. There it was. Not cruelty, habit. She still carried a map of him drawn 8 years earlier. Every answer had to fit inside it. Vanessa looked toward the entrance. Did you come by yourself? My wife is joining. Me. Vanessa's expression changed. You're married? Yes. When did that happen? 3 years ago. You never mentioned it. We haven't spoken in 6. That's true. Richard looked toward Adrian's wedding ring. Vanessa followed his gaze. Her surprise seemed genuine. Wow, Adrian nodded. Wow. Who is she? Claire Bennett. Vanessa frowned slightly. The name meant nothing to her. She works? She's an architect. That makes sense. What does? You always liked buildings. Adrian smiled. Yes. Vanessa looked toward the entrance again. And she's coming? Yes. When? Soon. The conversation moved elsewhere, or tried to. But Adrian noticed Vanessa watching him from time to time, not with affection, Not even regret. With curiosity. She had expected something different. He could sense it. Perhaps a heavier version of him. A frustrated version. Someone eager to explain the last 8 years. Instead, Adrian was calm. That seemed to unsettle her more than failure would have. 20 minutes later, the group had grown. Old stories circulated. Embarrassing photographs appeared. Someone remembered Adrian building a miniature bridge for a science fair. Vanessa laughed. He talked about that bridge for 6 months. It held 80 pounds, Adrian said. It was made from wood sticks. It held 80 pounds. The group laughed. This time, Adrian laughed too. Vanessa looked at him. You really haven't changed. The sentence was probably intended lightly, but Adrian heard the old meaning beneath it. Still Adrian. Still simple. Still thinking small. Some things have, he said. Vanessa tilted her head. Like what? Adrian looked around the ballroom. Most things. She smiled. You know what I mean. I'm not sure I do. Vanessa lowered her voice. You always had these huge plans. Adrian said nothing. I'm glad you found something stable. Richard looked toward her. Vanessa continued. I mean that sincerely. I know. I worried after the divorce. Adrian almost asked why. He decided not to. You seemed lost, she said. I probably was. At least for a while. Yes. Vanessa appeared satisfied with the answer. You know, sometimes things work out the way they're supposed to. They do, she smiled. Richard checked his phone. Adrian checked the time. 8:06. Claire should arrive soon, Vanessa noticed. Waiting for your wife? Yes. She's really coming? Adrian looked at her. Why wouldn't she? Vanessa laughed. I don't know. It's just funny. What is? You were always terrible at social events. I'm still terrible at them. And now you have a mysterious architect wife who shows up late to reunions. She's not mysterious. To me, she is. That's because you haven't met her. A few people chuckled. Vanessa smiled. Then someone asked to see a photograph. Adrian reached for his phone. Vanessa raised both hands. No, no. Let's wait. For what? For the grand entrance. Adrian looked at her. Something in her tone had changed. Old competitiveness, old certainty. She glanced toward her friends. What if we've spent 20 minutes talking about a wife who never arrives? The laughter around them was softer this time. Adrian felt the attention of the group shift. He knew this moment. Years ago, he would have rushed to defend himself, shown photographs, explained Claire's meeting, proven the relationship, proven the marriage, proven his life. Instead, he put his phone back into his pocket. She'll arrive, Vanessa smiled. So confident. Yes. Richard looked uncomfortable. Vanessa. What? Maybe leave it. She laughed. I'm joking. Adrian nodded. I know. But she continued. You always did hate being embarrassed. I think everyone does. No? You took it personally. Adrian met her eyes. Most embarrassment is personal. A former classmate laughed nervously. Vanessa looked around the group. Remember when Adrian said he'd own a company that changed entire cities? Several people remembered. One man smiled. You did say that. Adrian nodded. I was 17. Vanessa laughed, and extremely serious. I'm still serious. What happened to that dream? The question settled between them. Richard looked sharply at Vanessa. Adrian studied her. She truly did not know. He could answer with one sentence. He could tell her the company operated across 9 states, that it employed thousands of people directly and indirectly, that municipalities hired his teams to redesign systems serving hundreds of thousands of residents. He could tell her that analysts had valued his personal holdings above $1 billion hours earlier. But suddenly Adrian understood something. The truth did not become more true because he announced it, so he smiled. I'm still working on it. Vanessa gave a sympathetic nod. I figured. Then, behind her, the ballroom doors opened. Several people turned. Adrian did too. Claire stepped into the room, and for the first time that evening, Vanessa stopped smiling. Claire Bennett had never understood why people entered rooms as though the room itself were waiting to judge them. Rooms were walls, dimensions, materials, light, and purpose. People gave them power. She preferred not to. She entered the Meridian Grand Ballroom 10 minutes after 8, wearing a dark blue dress, carrying a small black handbag in one hand and her phone in the other. She had left a foundation board meeting directly. Her hair was pinned loosely at the back. Her expression carried the calm fatigue of someone who had spent 2 hours discussing budgets with people who all believed their preferred column deserved priority. Claire paused near the entrance. She scanned the room. Then she found Adrian. He stood among a group near the center of the ballroom. Even from across the room, Claire could read his posture, shoulders relaxed, one hand in his pocket, small, polite smile. But there was something else, the particular stillness he developed when someone was testing his patience. Claire started toward him. As she crossed the ballroom, several people recognized her. Not because Claire was famous in any meaningful sense. She would have rejected the word immediately. But she had recently led the redesign of several major public school campuses in Northern California. An architecture publication had featured her work. A local television station had interviewed her regarding community-centered school design. One woman near the entrance whispered her name to her husband. Another former student who worked in development looked surprised. Claire did not notice. She was watching Adrian. He finally saw her. His entire face changed. That was the first thing Vanessa noticed. Not Claire's dress, not the whispers, Adrian's face. For most of the evening he had been polite, controlled, amused occasionally. When he saw Claire, something warm appeared, unperformed, immediate. Claire reached him. "Sorry, you're late. 7 minutes. 10. You timed me? I'm an infrastructure executive. That doesn't answer the question." "It explains the behavior." Claire smiled, then she kissed his cheek. "Hello, husband." "Hello, wife." Vanessa stared. Adrian turned. "Claire, this is Vanessa Cole." For a fraction of a second, Claire understood everything. This was Vanessa, the woman Adrian almost never criticized, the marriage he discussed only when necessary, the person whose judgment had once become so deeply connected to Adrian's self-worth that even years later, certain questions made him pause before answering. Claire smiled and offered her hand. "Nice to meet you." Vanessa recovered quickly. "You too." They shook hands. "You're the architect." Claire glanced at Adrian. "He told you." "Yes." "That was efficient." Vanessa laughed lightly. "I didn't know Adrian had remarried. We kept the wedding small. How did you two meet?" "Arguing about windows." Vanessa blinked. Claire explained. "School renovation." Adrian added. "She won." "I was correct." "She was correct." Richard smiled. "You're Claire Bennett." Claire looked at him. "Yes. You worked on the Bayview Schools Initiative. One part of it. I saw the project. Hopefully you liked the windows." Richard laughed. Vanessa looked between them. "You're well known?" Claire immediately shook her head. "No." Richard said, "She's being modest." "I'm being accurate." Vanessa's eyes returned to Adrian. A small shift occurred. For the first time, she appeared to question the story she had built around him, not abandon it, question it. Adrian noticed. He felt no satisfaction, only sadness. How much of their marriage, he wondered, had been shaped by assumptions neither knew how to challenge. Claire touched his arm. "Did you save me dinner?" "There is food." "That sounds ominous." "I ate before you arrived." "You betrayed me." Adrian raised an eyebrow. Claire immediately corrected herself. "You abandoned my dessert prospects." "That phrasing is acceptable." Vanessa watched them exchange the joke. Something passed over her expression. Perhaps recognition. Perhaps comparison. Adrian chose not to interpret it. A former teacher approached them. "Adrian?" He turned. "Mr. Palmer." His high school engineering teacher looked older, smaller somehow, but his voice was exactly the same. "Mr. Palmer, you made it." Adrian smiled and shook his hand. "I promised." Mr. Palmer noticed Claire. "You must be Claire." "Yes." "I've heard about you." Claire looked at Adrian. "Good things." Mr. Palmer laughed. "Mostly complaints about your opinions on public buildings." "Then yes. Good things." Vanessa listened. "Mr. Palmer turned to Adrian. "The principal has been looking for you." Adrian's smile faded slightly. "Why?" "You know why." "No." Mr. Palmer stared. "You really don't?" Adrian looked toward the stage. At the front of the ballroom stood a podium beside a large screen displaying the school's logo. Several administrators were organizing folders. Adrian suddenly remembered a conversation from 3 months earlier, the scholarship expansion. He had agreed that the school could announce the new program at the reunion. He had specifically asked them not to mention him. "Mr. Palmer." "Yes?" "We discussed anonymity." Mr. Palmer smiled. "I discussed gratitude." "That is not the same conversation." Claire watched Adrian. "What did you do?" "Nothing." Mr. Palmer laughed loudly. Vanessa folded her arms. "What is this?" Adrian sighed. "A school project." "What kind?" "Scholarships." Vanessa looked toward Mr. Palmer. "He donated." Mr. Palmer stared at her, then back at Adrian. "You didn't tell people?" "Why would I?" Mr. Palmer shook his head. "Unbelievable." Adrian lowered his voice. "Please tell the principal not to make this about me. I'm retired. That does not remove your ability to walk 20 feet. Claire smiled. Mr. Palmer walked toward the stage. Vanessa looked at Adrian with renewed curiosity. "You fund scholarships?" "Some." "How many?" Adrian shrugged. "Enough." Richard looked at him. That answer clearly bothered him. "Through your company?" "Some through the company, and some personally." "Yes." Richard's expression sharpened. Adrian recognized the look. It was the look of someone who understood financial scale. Vanessa did not. Not yet. She smiled. "That's nice." Adrian nodded. "It is." "You always liked helping people." There was something sincere in her tone. For a moment, the tension softened. "Yes. I remember your dad doing electrical work for neighbors. He still gives advice to everyone." "Does he?" "He has expanded into unsolicited opinions about plumbing." Vanessa laughed. Adrian did too. And for one brief second, they were not former spouses carrying 8 years of distance. They were simply two people remembering a familiar kitchen. Then the principal tapped the microphone. "Good evening, everyone." Conversations quieted. Guests turned toward the stage. The principal welcomed the graduating class. There were jokes, thank yous, memories. A slide presentation began. Old photographs appeared. Students laughed at hairstyles and fashion. Adrian stood beside Claire. Her hand rested lightly against his. Vanessa and Richard remained nearby. Then the principal's tone changed. "Our school has changed enormously since many of you walked these halls." Images appeared of renovated classrooms, a science building, a technical laboratory, a student design center. Adrian's stomach tightened. Claire looked at him. "What?" "Nothing." "You have the face." "What face?" "The face you make when someone is about to praise you publicly." "I do not have a face for that." "You absolutely do." The principal continued. "Over the past 6 years, one alumnus and the foundation associated with his company have quietly funded scholarships, engineering programs, building improvements, and internship opportunities for hundreds of students." Murmurs moved across the room. Vanessa turned toward Adrian. He stared at the stage. The principal smiled. "And despite his repeated requests that we not recognize him tonight, I believe gratitude occasionally requires ignoring instructions," Claire whispered. "I like him." Adrian sighed. The screen changed. A photograph appeared, not of Adrian, of the renovated Future Works lab. Students stood around robotics equipment and engineering tables. Adrian felt his irritation disappear. That room mattered. Those students mattered. The principal continued. The program began with one question. What would happen if a student's future was limited only by effort, rather than access? Vanessa's expression changed. She looked again at Adrian. Adrian could feel it coming. The principal announced his name. Applause filled the ballroom. Adrian closed his eyes briefly. Claire squeezed his hand. Stand up. I am standing. Then look grateful. I am grateful. You look like you want the floor to open. That would also be acceptable. People nearby began turning toward him. Some clapped louder. Former teachers approached. A classmate slapped Adrian, gently on the shoulder. Vanessa stared. How much have you given? Adrian looked at her. That's not important. It sounds important. It isn't the part that matters. Richard was studying Adrian again. What exactly is your company's annual revenue? Adrian's eyes shifted toward him. Why? Curiosity. Vanessa laughed. Richard, stop interviewing him. But Richard did not laugh. He was looking at Adrian's watch, then his suit, then toward Claire, then toward the Future Works lab on the screen. Pieces were moving into place. Adrian could see it. Claire could too. Vanessa could not. The applause eventually faded. Music resumed. Guests returned to conversations. But something in the ballroom had changed. People who had barely noticed Adrian earlier now approached him. Former teachers thanked him. Parents of scholarship recipients spoke about their children. One woman told Adrian her daughter had become the first person in their family to attend engineering school. That conversation meant more to him than every company valuation report he had ever read. Vanessa stood a short distance away. Her expression was no longer mocking. It was uncertain. Eventually, she approached. I owe you an apology. Adrian looked at her. For what? For earlier. You were joking. I was being condescending. Adrian appreciated the honesty. Yes. Vanessa exhaled. I assumed. Yes. I shouldn't have. No. She looked around at the people still approaching him. I really didn't know. I know. How would I? You wouldn't. She studied him. Why didn't you ever tell anyone? Some people knew. You know what I mean. Adrian did. Why had he never made sure? She knew? Years ago, that question would have mattered intensely. Now the answer was simple. Because we weren't part of each other's lives anymore. Vanessa looked away. That makes sense. Richard approached them. He had been on his phone. Adrian. Yes? I looked up Villanueva infrastructure. Claire glanced at Adrian. Adrian remained still. Vanessa frowned. You looked him up? Richard ignored her. You own it. Yes. Not a small piece. No. Richard lowered his phone. Vanessa laughed lightly. What are you two talking about? Richard looked at her. Vanessa. What? You said he ran a construction company. He does. Richard shook his head. No. He turned toward Adrian. You run one of the largest privately controlled infrastructure groups on the West Coast. Silence. Vanessa looked at Adrian, then at Richard, then back at Adrian. How large? Adrian did not answer immediately. Richard did. Very. Vanessa's expression shifted. The old certainty disappeared. Completely. Claire watched her carefully. Vanessa looked at Adrian as though the person standing in front of her had changed while she was not looking. But Adrian had not changed during the evening. That was the entire point. He had changed during 8 quiet years, when Vanessa had no reason to notice. She swallowed. How successful are you? Adrian looked at her. Around them, the ballroom continued moving. Music played. Glasses clinked. Former classmates laughed. Outside the windows, fog drifted slowly over San Francisco. Adrian thought about telling her. One sentence, one number, one revelation that would answer everything. Instead, he smiled gently. Successful enough that I finally stopped measuring it. Vanessa stared, and across the ballroom, Hannah Reed entered carrying a folder Adrian had accidentally left at the office. Inside that folder was the valuation report with his name printed above a number containing 10 digits. She spotted Adrian, raised the folder, and started walking toward him.